Okay. You'll bring it in.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Huddle Show, your number one source for football information in Van Zandt County. I'm David Barber, Van Zandt News sports correspondent, joined by T.A. Hale from the Buzz Brothers, the counselor, Joel Elliott, engineer Ken. We are missing a member of our team tonight, Kyle Owens. We know him as K.O. Sports director at our sister station, KMU in Mineola, is out on assignment. I understand he's emceeing an event over in Mineola tonight and couldn't be with us, but he'll be back with us next week.
He's in high demand. He took the big money tonight.
That's right. He did take the big
I don't blame
money.
you.
No, not at all. Not at all. Gentlemen, we have one regular season game remaining for most of our teams. The Edgewood Bulldogs have already concluded their schedule. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But I'm reminded of a comment that former Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator Butch Davis made when he was working under Jimmy Johnson. He said, "Gentlemen, we're about to separate the contenders from the pretenders."
That's where we are.
So we know about some of our teams so far as playoffs are concerned. There's a couple of situations, though, we're unclear about that we're going to try to straighten out here on the show tonight. But, T.A., why don't we start talking about the Edgewood Bulldogs, a team that has gotten really hot here the last few weeks.
Boy, they sure have. And as they say, for the Edgewood Bulldogs, the hay's in the barn for them.
Right.
As far as the regular season goes, they have done it. And, you know, I was thinking back to, David, the first year we started doing this show is the year that Coach help me, Coach, I'm drawing a blank.
Coach Howard, no, I'm sorry.
That goes back a ways.
Boy,
That
oh
goes
boy.
back a ways.
A ways.
I'll come up with it in a minute.
Oh,
Go
he's
ahead.
at Howard Payne now, drawing a blank. Anyway.
That's right.
Bechtel.
Coach
Bechtel, thank
Bechtel,
you.
when he started in 16, they won 9 games in 16, 17, and 18. In 2019, they won 7 games. 20, they won 6, and then this year they won 7. They've won just under 8 games a year for the past 6 years. That school's on a roll. They have really established a winning
Right.
culture there. And so Coach Guerra has had a great first year with the Bulldogs, and apparently he's just picked up where they left off, and things are rolling. They went into they hosted Mildred last Friday night. The 3-6 Mildred Bulldogs. I'm not sure what they are. 35-12 was the final there.
Eagles.
The Eagles. Okay, the Mildred Eagles. They're 3-6, and on the outside looking in for the playoff picture. So Edgewood took care of that when they scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and then they added another in the second. The halftime score was 21-12. The Bulldogs came right out. They put up 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, and then that wrapped up all the scoring. That got to your final 35-12. So they cruised to their 7th win. They locked in that second spot, the second seed in the district. And so they'll have a nice week off here to kind of rest, regroup, and kind of plan. It's pretty clear who they're going to play. I think we're pretty certain of that. So the way that district has shook out there, Palmer is going to win it at 5-0. Edgewood, they're 5-1 right now. Blooming Grove is at 3-2, and I think that's secure also. Now this week, Scurry Rosser will play Mildred. Actually, Scurry's at Mildred, and I think that will determine the 4th seed in that district. So that's really the only thing that's still in question. So that's kind of wrapped up. If you look at the other district over there that Edgewood matches up with in the playoffs, boy, that's a tough bunch of teams. You got the number 1 ranked team in the state, and Gunter 5-0. Bells, the second place team there, they're 18th ranked, and then you got Leonard, who's they're going to get the 3rd spot probably. They're ranked 20th in the state. So a lot of good teams in that district. Some individual stats here from Friday night's game against Mildred. Hayden Wilcoxon, he's just continued to do a great job. He's had a great year. I don't have his total stats. I'll have those next week, though. Friday night he was 9 of 11, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then on the ground, he had 12 rushes for 118 yards. Noah Boone, 5 rushes, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then you had Luca Grace. We've been mentioning that name a lot. 4 receptions, 58 yards, 1 touchdown. And then A.C. Watson had 1 grab for 20 yards and 1 touchdown. So the Bulldogs those are some individual scores for the Bulldogs, or stats for the Bulldogs. Team stats, Edgewood had total offensive yards of 370 versus Mildred's 238. This is kind of an odd stat. Total plays run, Mildred had 55, Edgewood had 36. Kind of interesting there. It sounds like Edgewood got themselves some short fields.
I was going to say, it sounds like they make very good use of their plays.
Does me too. Edgewood's, their rushing yards were 237, passing 137, first downs 15. So good night for the Bulldogs, and it appears they're on a crash course with Leonard. And if you take a look at the rankings there, Leonard they're 3-2 in district, but Max Preps has them ranked 20th. So they've had a tough preseason schedule. Edgewood, I looked at that, and Max Preps, they've got them at 47. And I know it doesn't mean everything. I know the rankings don't mean everything, but that might be a little soft for Edgewood, I feel like. They might be a little sneaky at what they can do with that big, strong defensive or offensive line and their good run game. They might surprise some people. So congratulations to Coach Guerra. A great first year, 7-3, and Edgewood Bulldogs rolling. We're going to pull for them in the playoffs and enjoy their week off.
Let me ask you this. Right now, as we're talking, it looks like Leonard's going to be the opponent. Any idea where they may be playing next week?
You know, a place that makes sense is Sulphur Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would suggest that if that can be worked out, that will be where they play.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that would make sense. So they've had a playoff game there before. In fact, I helped them call a game there a few years ago. They played Hooks in the first round there in Sulphur Springs. Very nice stadium. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll come back and talk about the Wills Point Tigers and the Fruitvale Bobcats next. Right now, we need to recognize some of our sponsors, but before we do that, let me mention to you where we are. We are at the Q & Brew Restaurant at the Silver Spur Resort. We're about a mile north of Interstate 20 on Highway 19 in Canton. We're here Tuesday nights from 6 to 7, and a reminder that next week will be our final show of the season. So you got one more chance to come out here and join us next Tuesday night, and the replay of tonight's show can be heard Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, on our sister station, KMOO 99.9 FM in Mineola. Right now, let's recognize some of our sponsors, and as always, we do thank our sponsors very much, and we want to recognize Sensible Dentistry. Life is better with a beautiful smile. 1350 South Trades Day Boulevard in Canton, 903-567-2666. We're brought to you by Dean Kubota. Wills Point, 903-873-2451. Forney is 972-552-3151. We're brought to you by Down Home Cafe. Daily breakfast and lunch specials. Breakfast available anytime. 400 West Highway 243 in Canton. 903-567-7601. We're brought to you by Exit Realty Pro at 1445 South Buffalo Street in Canton. 903-567-7777. We're brought to you by Goods, Texaco, and Tires. We sell service at Goods Service Station. Cooper Tires, state inspections, oil changes, mechanic work, computerized four-wheel alignment, storage buildings. 903-963-7848, located at 172 East Main Street in Van. We're brought to you by Hall Chevrolet, Fine New Roads. They're located in Canton, 903-567-4106. And we're brought to you by the Tim James Insurance Agency, Home, Auto, Business, and Farm, 548 West Highway 243 in Canton, 903-567-0627. I'm David Barber, Van Zant News sports correspondent, joined by T.A. Hale from the Buzz Brothers, the counselor Joel Elliott. Engineer Ken is with us tonight. Kyle Owens is out on assignment tonight. He'll be back with us next week. Now let's talk about some more of our Van Zant County football teams. And when we went to break, I forgot to mention the Grand Saline Indians. So, Joel, I'm going to leave it up to you which direction you want to go. If you want to talk about Wills Point, Grand Saline, Fruitvale.
Let me hit Grand Saline first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The last few weeks, Grand Saline has had this big turnaround. And I know I told everybody last week I was going with my heart, and they almost proved me right.
They sure did.
I think everybody expected West Rusk to have a huge blowout. Grand Saline was 26, West Rusk was 49, and that was a game. Grand Saline was playing in that ball game. So now there's one of those this is where football nerds really love this. So we're trying to sit here and do some math, and I've been talking to I'd texted back and forth Coach Drennan, talked to Micah Lewis, and David and I have been texting back and forth some. So here's the way the playoff situation works out. Now, the short, for anybody from Grand Saline who's listening, win, you're in.
Okay.
Now, for all of us nerds, here's why.
Okay, yeah.
So we had talked about before, if there happened to be a three-way tie in our district, what the deal was, and it was an 18-point differential tiebreaker. So that will come into play for Grand Saline, but those points have already been decided.
Is it 18 or 21?
Grand Saline's is 21. Our district was 18. And, and I've done the math on it. It works out either way. It could be an 18 or 21 for Grand Saline, and it still works out when you're in.
I'm sorry, but when you say our district, I'm got a little confused
okay,
there.
Canton's district. When I say ours
He's got allegiances.
I've got two allegiances now.
I know you do.
I got my kid, and
Which
I've
is
got
fine.
me. So.
Yeah.
So, and once we get to the playoffs, I'm kind of a Van Zant County fan. It's kind of like when my Texas college teams play out-of-state teams. I'm not an Aggie fan, but if they're if they're playing somebody from somewhere else, there you go.
That's right. We're not haters.
So whether it was an 18 or 21, which was what I was confused on earlier this week. So it's a 21-point differential in Grand Saline's district. If Grand Saline wins, and depending on how everything else turns out, it'll probably be a three-way tie between Grand Saline, Harmony, and Troop, which is really surprising because about a month ago we all thought Harmony was this tush hog that nobody could touch. It turns out they're not. So with the 21 points, Harmony gets 21 points because they beat Grand Saline by more than 21. And they get -6 because they lost to Troop, which gives them a positive 15. Troop is +6 because they beat Harmony by 6, and they're -15 because Grand Saline won by 15, which gives them -9. Grand Saline's -21 on Harmony and +15 on Troop, so that gives Grand Saline a -6. So you have the positive 15, the -9, and the -6, and -9 is the loser out. So if Grand Saline wins, Troop's out. Troop stays home. So if Troop were to win, then Grand Saline – basically Troop either sits at home or they go as the number 3. And it all comes down to what happens with Grand Saline. So Grand Saline pulls off this win. The short answer for all the Indian fans is win, you're in. You control your own destiny instead of having to sit here and watch everybody and try to figure these points out. All of these things have already been determined. So all that said, Grand Saline plays ARP this week, and that is a very winnable game, especially the way Grand Saline. It's literally like in the last 21 days that team has,
it has
done a complete and total 180.
Yes,
exactly.
ARP. Let's look here. ARP in their district right now is sitting number 2. They're 4-1. But they're beatable. This isn't just like last week. I think everybody kind of believed that this was going to be a blowout, and Grand Saline held in there and played with them. If they ride this momentum, I think Grand Saline has a real good shot at winning and making the playoffs. Now, going back and forth with Coach Drennan, if I can find my text here, he's pretty proud of the way these kids have been playing recently too. So He said that basically just the win you're in should be plenty of motivation. Likes the way that they've been playing, and basically when the kids put their mind to it, they've shown that they can step up and play with just about anybody. ARP's pretty good. They have a dangerous running back, number 6, and a receiver, number 8, and a quarterback that's been a returning starter. He does a real good job. Their defense runs well, and they pretty much chase the ball all the time. So this is their senior night over in Grants Lean. It should be a packed house. It's kind of a turnaround. After last year's disappointment, Grants Lean's back in the hunt for the playoffs. I think 2 years ago, TA, you and I did the Blue Ridge game over at Rains. Yeah. So maybe Grants Lean can get this thing turned around and get back in the playoffs. And, I'm pleasantly surprised at where they are right now, and I do have good feelings about this Friday night. So
I do too. And didn't we've been talking about Drennon's going to get this thing going at some point.
Absolutely.
So, so that is not a surprise. We might have thought it might kind of evolve over the offseason, and we might see it next season. But this is no need to be surprised here. And there's evidence on the table, real evidence, especially even in the loss against West Rusk. We need to mention they're the number 5 team in the state.
Yes.
And they put up points against them. They were very competitive. So 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have given you any chance at all for Grants Lean to have a chance to get in. But what they've done these last three weeks, I'm a believer. They're a different team now.
I think Grants Lean's going to win Friday night, so I've got them in.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what their seeding possibility is and who they might be playing?
So Grants Lean would end up in the 4 spot, and they're playing the winner of District 10. And right now, Dangerfield is holding that spot, if I'm correct. I haven't run that by anybody from Grants Lean, but just looking on the internet, I think that would be Dangerfield. They're 5-0 in their district. I think they lost earlier this year to Tatum and one other team that's pretty good. So. But at the same time, I don't think Dangerfield's any better than West Rusk, and Grants Lean's on an incline right now. So, it's not like they're going in and playing West Rusk again. I mean, and if they have an improvement and beat ARP this week, those kids are going to be flying pretty high going into the playoffs. Going in 3-4 with their only loss to the number 5 team in the state.
Oh, your confidence is totally different. Now you're thinking like a winner all of a sudden.
That's exactly right.
And I'm telling you, if this happens, if they go in there this next week and they beat ARP outright, I'm going to call this one of the bigger turnarounds mid-season that we've seen in a long time.
Well, we're going to talk about another team here in just a second that's had a nice turnaround, although they lost last week. But before we get to Fruitvale, I wanted to ask you about Grants Lean again. I guess it's way too early to say if Grants Lean plays Dangerfield, where are they going to play? It's way too early to talk about that.
I think it would be too early to talk about it, but we all know what's between here and there.
Longview.
Or historically, if they could get in, it wouldn't surprise me if they would go to Rose Stadium. But then, in all honesty, Lindale
it's closer.
Would be kind of a place that I think they might land at. And it wouldn't surprise me and I haven't talked to anybody about this, but it wouldn't surprise me if that would be a Thursday night game.
Yeah.
That would be an easy Thursday night game in Lindale, and it's not that far. It's not like the kids would be traveling all over the place. So
there's going to be high demand for Lindale as a playoff venue.
Yeah.
So they'll,
All right. Well, we wish the Grants Lean Indians well, and I think we're going to be talking about a team heading to the playoffs.
I hope so. What a story.
I hope so.
Fruitvale Bobcats, tough night for them against their opponent last week, and, of course, they're in a position now where they're in against Leverage Chapel this week. And while you're talking about them, I think I may have some information on Fruitvale for you.
Okay. Last week was rough. It was Union Hill, but then again, Union Hill is a tush hog. Everybody's known that was kind of a potential last week. In that game,
the offensive stats were not very good for Fruitvale the other night.
I'm looking at them, and I'm almost not wanting to read them.
Yeah.
They did manage 7 points, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a tough night.
It was a tough night. I mean, there's not a lot. I'm reading the stats. I'm not going to read them out loud. There's not a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, it's okay.
So, I know that, that hopefully if everybody's healthy, every time I read Fruitvale stats, you got the same kids popping up. And this is senior year for Coleman and Baumgardner, and those two boys have pretty much they've got a lot of other good players, but those two kids, last regular season game,
Yeah.
If you lose, you're done. And everybody does that in the playoffs, but they're starting that early. They're in that, hanging in the balance, kind of like Grant Saline is. This could be your last game. So, and Leverett Chapel's beatable. So, and I tried to pull that up earlier, and they are in Division I in 6A, and I think they're playing somebody from District 10, and I couldn't pull that up a while ago, so I'm not sure who they would be playing if they do win.
You mentioned the win and end thing, and possibly the final game for an athlete. That's going to happen to a lot of kids on this Friday night.
You can say that say this for Fruitvale, that really the playoffs start for them Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The win and end scenario is starts Friday.
Yep. Well, and now that's to Grant Saline as well. I mean, and as a senior, it's one of those things where you can. As a parent, you can kind of start getting choked up thinking, well, my kid, this may be it. This may be the last time they lace up the cleats and put on a helmet. And, I had a college coach one time that said, obviously he was jealous because he was done with football. He said, kids, you better take advantage of this because what you're going to do on that field for the rest of your life is a crime. So all these kids that if you don't win this weekend and you go out and do what you're going to be able to do on that field for the rest of your life, it's a crime. So you can't hit each other, you can't do those types of things. So go out there, lace it up, and have fun. Just do what you can and try to take home that victory so you can do it again next week. I
think anyone who hasn't done it, who hasn't put the pads on and played on a Friday night under the lights and with the band playing and all that, if you've never done it, you don't understand what it's like for it to be over.
Yeah,
and
right.
You've heard the stories about people just not wanting to leave the field because they know when they walk off that field, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. All right, we're going to come back and talk about the Wills Point Tigers in a moment, but let's talk about some of our sponsors. And we want to thank Legacy Dental Group, Family Dentistry, Cosmetic Dentistry, Oral Surgery, Orthodontics, Sedation Dentistry. Located at 240 East Highway 243 in Canton, 903-508-2923. We're brought to you by M Squared Management, Property Management Company, 1435 South Buffalo Street in Canton, 903-502-0202. We're brought to you by Mooseburg Insurance Agency, 14340 State Highway 64 in Ben Wheeler, 903-833-5104, Auto, Home, Life, Farm and Ranch Commercial. We're brought to you by Ramsey's Roadhouse, Wills Point's friendly neighborhood diner. 505 North 4th Street in Wills Point, 903-560-8214. We're brought to you by Ricky G's Auto Repair. Check with us for all your auto repair needs. 903-963-1540. Located at 215 Quayle Street in Van. And we're brought to you by Robertson Electric. Commercial and residential air conditioning and heating service. Free estimates. Located in Wills Point and Terrell. The Wills Point number is 903-873-2461. Terrell is 972-563-5254. I'm David Barber, Van Zant News sports correspondent, joined by T.A. Hale from the Buzz Brothers, the counselor Joel Elliott, engineer Ken is with us tonight. Kyle Owens is a special event tonight in Mineola, could not be with us. He will be back with us next week. And a reminder that we are at the Q and Brew restaurant at the Silver Spur Resort, a mile north of Interstate 20 on Highway 19 in Canton. And next week will be our final show. We'll be here from 6 to 7 next Tuesday night. A replay of tonight's program can be heard Wednesday, 7 p.m. on our sister station, KMU 99.9 FM in Mineola. And, guys, I forgot to mention earlier, as it is every Tuesday night, tonight is $2 taco night.
Yes, sir.
So worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's good stuff.
Well,
and I'm going to go ahead and go back to Fruitvale real quick.
Okay.
If they win, I believe they play Throckmorton. The only time I've ever been to Throckmorton was to go dove hunting. There is nothing there.
What's that near?
It's like once you get past Weatherford, there's nothing. So it's one of those nothings heading out west. So
I'm thinking
you
about
need GPS to get there.
yes,
that sounds like a potential flip of a coin for home and home in the playoffs. Because I don't know how many six-man fields there be between here and there.
Good point. They'll cross that bridge when they come
That's
to
right.
it.
That's
yeah,
right.
It's a 3.5-hour trip, whichever team's making the. And do they always do it with a coin flip, or is it first round? Sometimes do they do it with the? It's almost to Abilene. It's just north of Abilene.
Oh wow.
So like I said, once you get to Weatherford, just keep on.
Yeah.
Just put it on cruise. It's not going to turn or anything. Just keep going straight.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, we certainly wish the Bobcats well. Unfortunately, we do have one team in Van Zandt County that's going to end their season for sure Friday night, regardless of what happens, and that's the Wills Point Tigers. And they finish with a road trip to Caddo Mills. And, Joel, I'm trying to find some positives here for the Wills Point Tigers, and right now it's really tough.
They're going to have a new district alignment next year.
Yes.
Yeah, that's positive.
Yes.
And with Coach Pointer, and it's been that way for a lot of coaches who've come in with COVID and changing systems and all those kinds of things. But, Wills Point, and the surprising thing was 2 years ago they were in the district with us, and they won district.
Yes.
And I do think, if you look back at last year, and I hate to blame COVID, but if you look back at last year, Canton had to reschedule a game and they missed a game, but they never stopped practicing. And last year when Wills Point had to basically take 2 weeks off with no practice, nothing, it's hard to see that they've really recovered from that. And this has kind of been one of those years that it's like you said, you're looking for positives, and I don't know what else to say about it. Hopefully, next year, new district alignment, maybe they can, come back east a little bit and get things turned back around.
Well, that can happen. It sounds kind of far-fetched maybe that you say, well, that was a year and a half ago or whatever that COVID happened. But, morale can take a hit, and that can really just have a snowball effect on your program. And pretty soon you lose belief, and it just kind of snowballs, and you never recover. Now, I do think that's possible.
Sure.
And earlier we were talking about with Grand Saline, when you win, you start believing you can win, and that works both ways.
Oh, yes, it does.
When you start thinking you're going to lose, sometimes you lose, and
it affects the way you practice. It affects just the way what your expectations are.
So, like I said, maybe next year we get in a new district alignment. In Wills Point historically, like I said, 2 years ago they won our district, and it's there. It's just getting this thing turned back around, getting this program built back up and going. So
that's right.
Wills
going to
Point,
happen.
Wills Point has had downs before,
right?
But they usually have more ups than downs, so they'll get there.
They will.
All right. We certainly wish them well going forward. All right, let's talk about another round of sponsors, and then we're going to come back and talk about another game that was played in Van Zandt County. And I guess it's easy to say now that people are still talking about it. But we'll talk about that Canton-Van game when we come back, but we need to recognize some more of our sponsors right now. And we want to say thank you to Mill Creek Dental, making East Texas smile, Dr. Ann A. Duddle, General Family and Cosmetic Dentistry, Orthodontics, 903-567-2207, 104 Burnett Trail in Canton. We're brought to you by Wills Point Ford. What matters to you matters to us. 618 Houston Street in Wills Point, 903-873-2511. We're brought to you by the Rick Johns State Farm Insurance Agency at 100 North 4th Street in Wills Point, 903-873-2858. Auto, Home, Life, and Health. We're brought to you by Thompson Equipment, 30387 State Highway 64 in Wills Point, 903-865-1616. We're brought to you by Taylor Automotive, 27928 Highway 64 in Canton, 903-567-3948. We're brought to you by Higginbotham Brothers at 221 Texas Highway 243 in Canton, 903-567-4077. And we're brought to you by City National Bank, 3 locations in Van Zandt County. Wills Point is 903-873-4157. Grand Saline 903-962-7588. Canton is 903-567-9100. I'm David Barber, Van Zant Newspaper's sports correspondent, joined by T.A. Hale from the Buzz Brothers, the counselor, Joel Elliott. The engineer, Ken, is with us tonight. Kyle Owens out on special assignment at KMU, and so he will be rejoining us next week. Well, what in the world has been brought here before us on the table?
Oh, my goodness.
We were talking about $2 taco night.
I don't want to be distracted.
It showed up with friends.
But just a minute, yeah.
Oh, my.
I hope there's not dead air for just a little while here,
It's
guys.
okay. I'll do a play-by-play. T.A. is going to try out, as well as Joel right now. And I'm not getting much response, but I'm sure I'm hearing a lot of chewing going on.
Brisket, jalapeno, salsa, and this sauce is amazing every time. Every time.
Got some sauce over here if you need it.
Yeah, this is, what is it that Kyle says every time? Chef's kiss?
Yes, chef's kiss.
I think of a cartoon every time I hear him say it. It reminds me of Saturday morning as a kid. I don't know why.
All right.
It's delicious. Delicious.
Well, gentlemen, the time has come for us to discuss,
Right.
to discuss that one of the greatest high school football games I think any of us have ever witnessed
Yes.
at Norris Birdwell Stadium last Friday night. It's the Canton Eagles and the Van Vandals. Engineer Ken, you have a word.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, we did. The wings.
Wings tomorrow night. It's wings and fries for. We will get a price on that for you in just a moment. Wings and fries on Wednesday night.
And the fries, they're kind of a little truffle fry with some Parmesan, and I'm not sure what kind of spice it is, but that's good too. So,
Okay.
yeah, so you gotta have some of that.
Wings, fries, and a drink, all for $8.50. How about that for Wednesday night? You can't beat a deal like that.
And there's barbecue, buffalo, and I'm not sure what the other one is. That looks like maybe some type of soy sauce. Yeah.
How about that?
No, that looks delicious.
All
I
right.
haven't had that yet. So
Well, you know what I'll be doing when we go off air tonight.
That's right.
So, all right, gentlemen. Canton,
time to get back serious this
Canton
talk.
versus Van. I don't know where to start. I wrote in my story in the Canton Herald that the game was decided by a crossbar.
And that's,
So-
that does sum it up.
Yeah, and you know, when you talk about two teams that put up 109 points, what was it, 53 first downs, 1,200 and I've got it written down here somewhere, 1,270 plus yards, I think, of offense among the two teams, and the two quarterbacks. Tremendous performances by the two quarterbacks. A lot of other players as well.
Sure.
But the two quarterbacks stepped up and did a great job for their teams last Friday night. Jason Brisboe and Jackson Rainey, unbelievable the way those guys played, not only throwing the football, but running the football as well.
Right. Did both.
And,
You know,
man, I will tell you, let me just say this, and I hope I would say this regardless of who won, what the score was.
Mm-hmm.
But watching a game like that in person with the crowd, I mean, it was loud and it was large.
Yes.
And perfect football weather, two fine football teams going at each other for 3 hours. To me, that's what high school football is all about.
It really is, David. You couldn't ask for anything more. I mean, not one more thing. You add the fact that it's two longtime rivals who both wanted to win so bad.
Yes.
And you could sense Canton, as it drew closer and closer, they could taste it. They could
Right.
just see it's within reach. And then I guess one of the things I liked the most about the game was there was nothing squirrely that happened. There was nothing lucky about it. The two teams just went blow for blow.
And the other thing I was going to say is when you look at the score, you think, wow, there was no defense. But when you look at the statistics, there were numerous third down conversions.
Mm-hmm.
There were fourth down conversions by both teams that were instrumental. Now, as far as there were only 3 possessions by each team, other than the end of the first half when Van let the clock run out with, on the opposite end of the field. But as far as drives that didn't end, Van had 1 turnover. They punted once and they turned it over on downs. Canton punted 3 times. So they had both of them had 3 possessions that didn't end in scores, but it was just blow for blow. Other than the beginning, it was just blow for blow, and you kind of got that sense of, and I think I heard Coach Moffitt last night on KMU say, we gave the ball back to him with 48 seconds left, and I thought, oh no.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we had any timeouts.
And I'll admit I thought it too, but we got the ball back with 56 seconds.
56, okay.
But and I'll admit I thought it too. By that time, I thought we can move this thing into field goal. Or at that time, I'm sorry, I was not thinking field goal range. I was thinking anything could happen here.
Well, by the way, that figure I was looking for on total offense, 1,221 yards combined, including 634 yards rushing and 587 yards passing. I mean, that's balance right there.
Yes.
And then if you, separate that among the two teams, I mean, it was balance all the way around. Van with 272 rushing and 298 passing. Canton with 362 rushing and 289 passing. So the total yardage was Canton 651 and Van 570.
So even, and that's the way the game played out. There was never much time to be upset about what just happened or to be very happy about what just happened.
Exactly.
Because there were very few sustained drives, really, if you think about it. A lot of the plays were quick hitting, the scoring plays were. And so, I mean, when each team scores 8 touchdowns and you still have room for 3 punts and 4 turnovers on downs or whatever, that's a lot of plays. It's all happening really fast.
Well, let's talk. I mentioned the quarterbacks the other day. Here's what I have for them. Brisboe, 12 out of 19, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He had 109 yards rushing, 16 carries, and 1 touchdown. So he had 398 total yards and 4 touchdowns. That's
by far
really
his
good.
His biggest night of the year.
That's really good. Now, and then we go to Jackson Rainey.
Yes.
I mean, these are video game-like numbers.
Yeah.
Jackson Rainey had 517 out of Van's 570 total yards. 517 yards of total offense. He completed 17 out of 18 passes, 298 yards, 5 touchdown passes, and no interceptions. And remember, his first pass was incomplete. He completed the final 17 passes that he threw.
Most quarterbacks, at the end of practice when you're just trying to run your 10 perfect plays and you're playing against air, most quarterbacks can't do that with no defense over there. And it really was probably one of the more perfect games I've seen a quarterback from a throwing standpoint. I mean, he was on the money. He was splitting defenders.
Oh, man.
I mean, he was putting it through windows, and it was impressive.
I didn't know he was that kind of player. I admit, we've talked about him every week on this show. I've seen the numbers, but I did not know he was that kind of quarterback.
And he also carried the ball 19 times for 219 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So he accounted for all 8 of Van's touchdowns, 5 passing and 3 rushing.
Well, and to TA, if David had told us last week that Rainey's going to throw for that many yards, rush for that many yards, 5 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns, I'd have said, oh, my gosh, we're going to get killed.
Yes.
And that's why this game – that and among many other reasons, that was probably – I think I texted David after the game. I said, if somebody bought a ticket to that game, it was worth every single penny and then some. It was just a great – as a fan, it was heartbreaking from Canton. But as far as watching football, that's the kind of game that you just can't you can't make up.
It's an instant classic, and it will go down in history. In the history of that rivalry, it will go down as the best game, can I say, ever played between those two teams?
Best game I've ever seen them play against each other for sure. Let me mention some other individual numbers for both sides that were impressive the other night. Rushing, Cameron Shaw for Canton, 20 carries, 156 yards, and a touchdown. Juan Robles, 6 carries, 87 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So those two players, plus Brisbane, you almost had 300-yard rushers. I mean, you only needed 13 more yards from Robles.
Right.
And you would have had 300-yard rushers for Canton the other night.
Goodness.
And then receiving for Canton, Jabraylon Pickens, 5 receptions, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
He showed up big
He
in
did.
a night when we needed him to.
And that's probably, if from my point of view, Jabraylon played more physical Friday night than he's done all year. I mean, when he caught the ball, he wouldn't go down.
Mm-hmm.
And on that last drive, he was just a fingertip away from breaking that tackle. But I'm not going to say that would have ended it, because there may have been too much time
That's true.
left on the clock if he had scored on that pass. So,
but that may have been his best catch of the night. He went up. We had to have that to
to
move
have
the
it.
ball down into field goal range.
Yes.
He went up with his hands and caught that strong. And without that catch, we don't get in position.
That's right.
And Van had 4 receivers that had touchdown receptions. Braden Bradshaw caught 6 passes, 109 yards, and a touchdown. Luka Kochev, 2 receptions, 42 yards, but both of them were for touchdowns. And then Ryder Shoquist, 4 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown. John Crow, 3 receptions, 65 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, it's the numbers are just incredible in this game. And then we come down to the end of the game, and you and I, well, I think all 3 of us were talking before we came on the air last night. When you watch the video replay, you see things that you didn't see live.
Right.
Yes.
And one thing that I didn't see was the unfortunate slip by Nathan Goodson on that field goal. But in spite of the slip, there's no way he can kick that ball any straighter down the middle than he did.
And that's at the edge of his range. 43 yards is a long way for a high school kid. And I think I know it's the longest field goal he's ever attempted. And it's in the biggest moment he's ever dreamed of. And I thought he made a heck of a kick.
Oh, and when it was in the air, I said, game, set, match. That's it.
If you go back and watch, and you can watch Canton's or Van's replay on YouTube, and don't watch the ball, watch the kids.
Yes.
Because when Brisbane held it and it was kicked, he stood up, held his hands up, and you can see Van players put their hands on their head.
Yes.
And then in an instant, it went the other direction. The Canton players hit the ground, and then the Van players jumped up. It was one of those moments in football where you just to have gone through that entire game with everything that went on, and then it came down to that one instant. It was so much tension in that stadium. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something I really liked, and I noticed this in the as it was happening live. After Tootie Prox caught that ball and got out of bounds it was the last game before the field goal.
Right.
I liked the way Coach Hubble signaled for the field goal. He took a couple of steps out on the field, waved his arm, and said, "Let's go do it!" With all the confidence in the world.
Right.
That caught my eye, and I'll tell you, Coach Hubble is starting to inject. I'm calling. There could be a culture shift going on in this Canton program here. The kids are buying his message. And
also want to mention that was a milestone victory for Coach Moffitt. 100 victories.
100 victories. Oh, we talked about that last week.
And we talked about that yesterday on the phone, and as Joel mentioned, he was on the KMU locker room show last night as well. And one of the things he said to me yesterday morning, he says, "Well, one thing's for sure, I'll never forget the 100th win because of how the game went."
Yes.
And because he said 100 wins or not, that was a memorable game.
Yes.
Well, and I'm going to say this, and I know you're here and you're not going to bring it up. For there to be a game to have covered your 450th game, just like it's going to be hard for him to forget, that is one for the books. We talked about it earlier today, and Center last year won on a field goal at the end of the game. And then I went back to my office and I thought about it. Center and Van don't have the rivalry. They're not down the road from each other, and they're not in the same district. So, it's kind of like. And I was a part of an Edgewood game back in '89 that came down to some really crazy circumstances at the end, and it wasn't this. I have never been around or been a part of or watched a game with the rivalry and the build-up. We've been talking about this all season. I mean, this is something, it doesn't happen. And for you to do that on your 450th, I don't know that you're going to forget that either. And congratulations.
Right. Thank you.
That is a great milestone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I tell you, it was a pleasure being there. And the thing that I liked, and again, this was something I didn't notice live, and I watched it on the video. After the game was over, the players got in a line to shake hands, and there was a lot of hugs exchanged, not just handshakes.
A lot of respect was earned,
I think,
on that field on Friday night.
Coaches and players for both teams. That was great to see at the end of the game.
Coach Tommy Day coached his last